Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of HelioPsychosis podcast. This is your host Vikka Draziv. Welcome, guys. If you're watching us from YouTube, Vikka Draziv, Truth in Plain Sight, please leave your comments, subscribe, like, and share the show with everyone. And if you're watching us from HelioPsychosis group on Facebook, welcome, guys. Leave your comments too. And if you're watching us from our new group called GEOM, that was a hidden group. We have recently made it public. So if you're watching us from there, guys, hello and welcome. And do please invite friends to that group because we're having a giveaway of a T-shirt by Ferret Radio Live or Flatten the Curve T-shirt. The more people you invite, the more chances of you winning that T-shirt on GEOM group. And guys, if you're watching us from realtruthseekers.com, welcome and share the show with your friends. We have some amazing guests today, but before I introduce my guest, I have a couple of announcements. That a big shout out to Elvin Staging for releasing Flatten the Curve subtitle in Dutch. So it's a huge contribution. He's from Holland, and our brothers from Holland, are giving us a big hand because Marcio David is also from Holland, from realtruthseekers.com. And Elvin Staging, as I said, for the subtitles. And there are a couple of more guys also from Holland who are doing crazy things. It's amazing. Guys, and before we start our show and before I introduce my guest, today's topic, it's not a debate. It's not about who is wrong or right. It's more for the sake of research and investigation because there are a couple of points that we want to discuss. So there could be any outcome. We are not looking for any conclusion. It's just for research purposes. So that's being said, guys, let's welcome our first host, our friend pilot, helicopter pilot, engineer, the star of Flatten the Curve, my good friend Rob Taylor. Rob, welcome, brother. How are you? Oops, looks like we are still having problem with Rob. We've been trying from past 10 minutes that it's having problem with
Hey,
audio. So let's see if it gets better.
and Vika, you got me now?
There
Yes.
it
You,
goes.
you have me now? Okay. Yes. Thank you for the invite, Vika. Thank you for the introduction. I wanna return it back to you for everybody listening. Vika Draziv is the flat Earth guru. If there ever was one, Vika is it. He's the man. Thanks to him for putting this all together, and thanks for having us all on the show. And welcome, and thanks for everybody else for coming in.
Welcome, Rob. It's a pleasure, brother, always to have you. My next co-host, like always, our admin from our few groups, our one of our also biggest supporters and a regular co-host on our show, HelioPsychosis, Jeannie. Jeannie Edith said, welcome, Jeannie. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Vika, thanks for having me. This is a pleasure to be here. And the gurus calling gurus, Rob. You
Yes,
guys
sir.
are amazing.
Welcome,
Thanks,
I,
Jane.
guys.
I, thanks, thank you. Thanks to everybody for being here in the chat. I hope you have a good time tonight. This should be very interesting.
Yes. And our next guest, also a star of Flatten the Curve, amazing contribution. Also, my good friend from long time. He's gone against the Congress for fluoride. He's one of a flat Earth truther. Mr. Kevin Bobick, welcome. How are you, Kevin?
I'm so good. Thank you for the introduction. I'm doing really good, and I look up to all you guys in some way, shape, or form. So it's definitely an honor being on here with you guys. So this should be fun for sure. But I'm doing really good. You caught me at a good time. Thank you, my man.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. Thanks for joining us. And our guest, our special guest for tonight, oh, what should I tell about him? Finally we got him on our show, and it really looked impossible that we could get him on the show. So he's the aeronautical engineer from our Flatten the Curve documentary. Awesome contribution. He had lots more to say and amazing stuff. And some of the points that he made in the documentary is really triggered some people, and that's why we wanted to invite him and discuss this. As I said, it's not a debate, it's just for research purposes only. So one of also the star from Flatten the Curve, Brett Freeman. Welcome, Brett. Such a pleasure
Hey,
to
how's
have
it
you
going?
here.
Thank you. Hopefully the first of many, but yeah, I've been a little busy, but never too busy for this. I guess.
Oh, it's great, brother. Final to have you here. Give us some of your feedback. How about the documentary?
Well, I mean, you can only lead a horse to water. Getting them to drink out of it, that's our continuous struggle for sure. Um, you're fighting a lifetime of indoctrination, but slowly we are chipping away at it. I was just telling somebody a minute ago. As of last week, I got somebody to finally wake up who's been lied to for 50 years, and we happen to be in aviation, so it's an eye opener for them, and obviously it expands to the other realms of life outside of work.
Yes, it does.
So
Excellent, excellent. So we
Yes, it
have
does.
few points. Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Uh, yeah, Vika, if you don't mind, let me chime in there. Brett, you're saying it exactly right. If once we ever start questioning the basic physics and our basic understanding, then we have to question everything, everything. Because once we start realizing that water does not slosh in a cup on the table, water will sit there perfectly still. That shows us right there that the earth is not moving. And water never curves on its surface. That means the water does not curve around the ball of the earth. When we start questioning things, thinking as an adult, we have to reorganize our entire mindset of everything in our life. Everything. There you go.
100%.
Exactly. So the few points we wanted to discuss, we'll go one by one. Each point in itself, it could be just could be breaking down so much. So the first point we wanted to discuss is what Brett has mentioned in the documentary about the wings being designed with 3 degree nose up, right,
yeah,
Brett? So could you break down on that? Yeah.
it's just the airfoil in general on a fixed wing, meaning that it will not be perfectly level in flight on the nose, because the angle of attack, you want it to be such that you're generating the lift first of all. But in straight and level flight, if it was straight on and you're cutting through air, you would be porpoising, because an equal amount of air would be going over the top of the aircraft as opposed to the bottom. But I guess you can say the wings would be designed that you're going to be nose up. I say the whole airfoil, but the aircraft itself is going to have an aerodynamic characteristic that you are flying 3 degrees nose up in straight and level flight, and any pilot will tell you that. They're not looking at a straight and level, zero leveled ADI when they're in flight. It is 3 degrees nose up the entire time. And the ADI does not lie. The ADI is the gauge that they will use in the event of a abnormal aircraft anomaly, and it's the only thing they're going to reference. They're not going to use any other digital or input other than the gyro known as the ADI, because it will always reference level. It cannot be manipulated. It would make a very poor gauge or a reference if you could manipulate it. Well, having said that, go towards Melbourne, Australia from London, say. At what point are you telling me that you don't feel yourself upside down while the gauge is right side up, having never strayed off of where you took off from. You know, so that will always reference one thing only. It does not care how cold it is outside. It doesn't care how high you are. It doesn't care where you're going. It is only going to reference one thing, and that's level. It doesn't know where you are. It doesn't know the outside air pressure. So when you start to rotate the plane, it's moving around that gauge or that gyro.
And Brett, let's add this. The gyro, it can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And
Terminator.
it absolutely will not
You're right. Is that a
down.
Crimson Tide reference?
It's always up. Up is always up. It's rigid in space. It doesn't move.
That is correct.
Here's your fellow military pilot confirming.
I guess having said that,
it's always 3 degrees up. 3 degrees up, absolutely. There you go.
A pilot would have a very hard time if that 3 degrees nose up wasn't there.
Yeah.
A pilot would have a very hard time controlling the porpoise effect. Now, you may have a tail that has a huge elevator on it that combats porpoising, but you're not flying at a 0 degree pitch. You're just not doing it. And any good pilot in here that's on these programs, they already know that answer. They already know that is truth. You know, I know there's a lot of pilots that still think we are on a ball spinning. You know, I do wonder how they leave LA and never get to New York, because I know they ain't breaking the sound barrier at 1,040 miles an hour trying to catch up to the spin. Exactly, but apparently it happens all the time, right?
All we have to do is put this in perspective. There is no Coriolis. Airplanes don't chase the Earth as it rotates out from under them. Helicopters hover above a completely stationary Earth. Brett, you could describe to everybody time distance heading, right? Time distance heading proves that no pilot has ever accommodated for the rotation of the Earth when planning flight routes.
No, I know. I deal with helicopters every day, let alone fixed wing.
Okay,
exactly.
Okay, if the ADI doesn't know what is upside or up or down, the same way when a plane is flying straight on a VOR, the plane doesn't know if it's going north or south. It's just following a line to the VOR.
Correct.
You know, so yeah, it really makes sense that the pilots are literally ignoring that they're arriving in Australia upside down. You know. It really doesn't make sense.
Like I say, it's not gonna magically. Where would the middle point be? Where would it magically flip upside down? Is it gradually doing it the whole time?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? At some point, you have to acknowledge that you are upside down from where you started. If you live on a ball, but your gauge, take the gauge in your hand or the gyro, and literally pretend you're the airplane, and now you're upside down. Well, that thing stayed level. Your hand is upside down, but the gyro didn't move.
The gyro didn't move.
All you are is the housing. You're the airplane at that point. A bottle of water is the perfect example of that. Take the bottle of water and move the cap, and that's the nose of the aircraft. And the cap is changing directions and pitch. The gyro is staying still. The water doesn't move.
It's the brain group housing. The brain group housing means the human body. When does the human body turn upside down and not know it? Right? It doesn't happen. It's laughable to even consider this.
Well, wait a minute.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Rob, because the liquid in the ear needs to be level.
It's a gyro,
right?
That's what it is. There's 2 gyros in every human head. It's called the inner ear, right? It's
the vestibular system.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. Everybody knows when they put their head upside down to kiss their ass. Well, shoot.
Hey, I saw Bezos pull like 10 Gs. Don't worry about every F-16 pilot ever passing out at 7 Gs now.
Exactly.
Come on now.
Right. Let's just
those guys got the real physiques. You know, the billionaires that are going to the atmospheres there. Yeah.
Right, or so they say. Right?
Yeah.
So at Mach 25, at 25,000 miles an hour, in that tin can they call the tin can they call the space shuttle. Right.
That's mockable.
Yeah, exactly. Which is really a helium balloon. We all know. with Chinese fireworks underneath it. That's all
It's
it is.
aggravating.
Chinese fireworks.
All right, we've got Rick Lotech with us from Ferret Radio Live joining us too. He was also into US Navy. I think if I'm right, he was an airman on right.
Right. Yeah.
Rick, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Vika. Thanks for inviting me, bud.
Welcome, brother. So tell us about yourself to our friends about you a bit, Rick.
Well, yeah, like Vika said, I was in the U.S. Navy. I served on board the USS Nimitz, a CBN aircraft carrier. I was in the Mediterranean for 18 months, and I worked on airplanes, the exact A7 Corsairs, and Phantom 2s, let's see, A6s, the intruders. So we worked on aircraft carriers and off the aircraft carrier, I should say. And I never saw a pilot that actually talked about going around or over the horizon as a tactic, as a tactic of war.
As a move.
We heard of weapons that were called over the horizon fire, but never heard a pilot talk about how he could see something over the horizon or would hide over the horizon or something like that. And even back then, we're talking, I was in 1976. So even back then, it was like there was this silent thing that everyone knew that the world wasn't round, the earth wasn't round, but wouldn't talk about it. So we couldn't put a term on it. We couldn't put a name on what it was, but we just said to ourselves, now, how can you live on a round planet when you got, things like that taking place where there's no tactic in the U.S. Navy known that involves hiding beyond the curve. And if any of you guys have ever heard of one, please let me know.
Yeah, we are
Well,
trying. We all are
I can
trying from
explain that.
different. Yeah.
I'd like to see the
I can
railgun
explain.
shoot 100 miles over that curve.
Yeah, exactly. They shoot a horizontal trajectory like the horizon, right? But the only way to accomplish what Rick's saying, a quote over the horizon shot, would be if there's a repeater somewhere. There's got to be a repeater because, as we all know by now, radio signals travel in a direct line of sight. There's no way it can curve. And here's an example, everybody. Everybody can imagine this. Everybody's been on a road, on a highway, and we know there's a car on the other side of the hill. We don't see the light from the car approaching us until the car breaks the hill. We don't see the lights until there's a direct line of sight from the car headlights to us. We can see a glow behind the hill, but we never see the lights until it breaks the hill. There you go.
That makes sense.
Well, there is
I wanted to
add
add
refraction, though.
Well, I wanted to add to this.
refraction,
I
right?
remember. No, I remember when I was in the 80s when I was in the school. I remember doing a science experiment of light traveling in a straight line. I don't know if it was a dream or how they started bending the light and all this shit. I remember doing that experiment in school about light traveling in straight line. I don't know how much truth is to that. What do you guys think?
Of course, it's a straight line.
Rob, what I was talking about was a naval tactic, say something that they teach commanders, captains, to hide beyond the curve. And if you think about it, why couldn't a ship hide behind the curve?
Because that periscope sees around it.
Yeah, exactly. The periscope 3 feet out of the water, right?
Yeah, I always bring that up.
That's hilarious.
I'm not seeing that boat 10 miles away, 3 feet off the water. Yeah.
How can reality be so comical?
Brett, what is the longest sight you think you've seen straight ahead out of a periscope or binoculars on the water? What do you think it is?
I say open view. I mean, if I look left down the beach and I look right
You
down
got
the
the bread.
beach, if I'm at the center of that, I mean, I'm guessing at least I'm gonna say 12 to 15 miles with my open eyes because I can see the nearest city where I'm at, and I know our bird's eye to my right is going to be about 8 miles. So obviously, I can still see 8 miles down the other side of the beach. So I mean, you're already talking 15, 20 miles right there. But people say 3 miles out in the ocean, I'm losing a boat. No, you're not. As Sean Connery would say, grab the binoculars, you dumbass. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's let's pull it all back in. You're not seeing around the curve. You're just able to see further. You know, the argument of why can't I see China? Oh, okay. We'll play this game. I'll go down to the end of this hotel in Vegas, and I'm gonna hold up a number of fingers. Tell me how many I have up.
Right.
It's probably one.
Yeah, from 100 feet away, you can't tell.
Yeah, the middle finger. Yeah, like, okay, did you get it yet? You understand now?
No, it went over my head. Sorry.
You can't see down the end of the hallway, but you want to see China because you just know it's not a flat surface. Well, fill up that side of the bathtub before you fill this side up. I'll wait. I want to see you do that because apparently you think you can put more water over here than you can over here in the same container.
I think the glass is always full, even if it's empty. It's full of air. So. It's always full.
Still a pessimist.
Wide awake. Welcome, brother.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead.
What is that?
Did we lose someone?
Yeah, we lost Rob.
We're gonna get back. It's Rob. Sometime he jumps out because just wanted to say hi to Wide Awake in the chat. Dr. Frankenstein. We've got the True Earth, Flat Earth Knowledge, and Wide Awake says anybody with any God-given senses can just look and see it's flat. The clouds give it away as the sun departs our view.
You know, two things that should easily bring it to light is water at the surface and pressurized atmosphere. People are like, well, it's got to go to zero because the lighter than air gases, it has, less pressure. Well, that may be true, but when you take the overall pressure in a cylinder, you're doing it from something that's maybe a couple of feet. You're talking about an entire realm. But if you put a gauge on the outside, it would give an average pressure. You cannot have pressure right here on the surface without it being contained. You may have less pressure up there, but you still have pressure nonetheless. You cannot open a bottle of Coke and leave the pressure in it. Meaning, somebody's not going to go puncturing our atmosphere without letting all the air out, so to speak.
Well, that's what
the pressure
to think that you can do that.
So the pressure is not constant, right?
No. I mean, obviously,
even up.
In altitude, you have the lighter than air gases, the noble gases. The higher you go up, that are lighter than air, which is why helium balloons, defy gravity by flying away. Which is what your aurora borealis gases are. No. Your noble gases, your colored gases, xenon, argon, and neon.
And that's
all that is. It's a collection of those gases over the north center of our hemisphere. That's plain and simple. I mean, if it was a spinning ball, they would be everywhere. They'd be over Africa while going in the trade winds and everything else. But they're not. They spin via the current over the highest part under the firmament. That's where they all collect as well. And when excited, they give off green and red and blue and yellow, and it's pretty. And people take pictures of it.
Exactly, and the electricity also is helping that gas to like the neons and everything. It's playing the part.
Yes,
to give that difference of colors.
And that's what gives us our daylight as opposed to the sunlight, which are two different things. The sunlight, when on a cloudy day, when you can't see where the sun is, it's 12 o'clock. It's somewhere right over your head, but there's no sunshine coming through the clouds. You still get daylight with no shadows. Pretty interesting.
Okay. Yeah, crepuscular rays are
speaking about the speaking about the pressure, Brett, uh, because they speak about the pressure altitude. That's how they say the planes auto-compensates for the curvature because of the pressure altitude. It's constant at that height. But I believe that the pressure cannot be constant because of difference in temperature, geography, and the location and the
Yes,
height and the
absolutely.
time of
So
the
on a
day.
given day as well, right? You could have a really cold day, and your pressure density. That's why they have you do the test. If it was a constant at that altitude, then you would need to do the test. You would need to ask what the OAT is or the outside air temperature because that fluctuates literally with temperature. So how can it be a constant? It's not a
And
constant.
that's
It's
the
constant with the temperature.
ex- exactly because that's the main argument for Globy pilots because
Yeah,
they'll say no,
yeah.
we are
And
not
again, I
flying
bring
at
them
sea
back to the
level,
gyro
sea
that never
altitude.
sways.
Yeah,
Yeah. They'll try to talk about what's the electronic system. I mean, we have
on the
ADHARs here
plane.
with our system. We use the ADHARs, but you still have a standby. The only gauge you're going to go to if you end up passed out in the next second while flying on a level trajectory, but don't have your bearings. There's only one gauge you're going to look at, and it's not going to be all that digital crap that requires inputs from outside sources. It's going to be that standalone, never swaying, cannot be manipulated gauge. Period. The ADI does not lie. Even the EADI requires an input from an outside source. An ADI does not. It will always be level. It does, like I said, you can fly 100 miles away in any direction from where you started, and it's going to be the exact same reference line that it started at. If you were launching yourself like in the form of a rocket, it would still be parallel to the water's surface at sea level. Even though your rocket's facing straight up, it would literally be pointing 90 degrees from your position until you got into flight and started to level it out. I mean, you can't manipulate it, right? So it's just like a bottle of water.
Exactly. So maybe the Globy's pilot should start looking for another excuse. So how is the autopilot is doing that? Relation to that. Nice one, Brett.
Autopilot gets its
Kevin.
coordinates from points that were created and generated on a fixed position. GPS stands for Global Positioning System, but there ain't no satellites.
Ground positioning.
It is literally, it is repeaters that are giving out signals. It triangulates, or in this case with 5G coming out, it eights because it's going to be 8 towers finding out where you are. It's going to be super narrow, like MGRS coordinates. It's going to know within feet of where you are.
But the acronym has globe in it. It has to be a globe then, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just like Globe Life Insurance. Yeah, they don't insure anybody, but they'll damn sure take your money.
Yeah, and the Federal
Global
Reserve.
warming.
Yep.
Yeah, so even the towers, as you say, because that's why they have those. They have to connect to the VOR to all the way to the destination because they are depending on these towers, these fixed routes. That's
People
why they
say
fly.
it has to be satellites because they fly over oceans, right? Well, there was a thing in place years ago called Saturn's Ring. I think it was called Saturn's Ring, and it was literally buoys that were put out. Now, granted, we know about the
Yeah.
transoceanic cables that get laid all the time. Well, obviously they have floating stations that are nothing but repeaters. I mentioned ionospheric refraction. It is a very real thing. It's the ability to take higher frequency stuff and literally bounce it off something solid above our head. Wonder what that could be. And it goes, towards, its desired target. I've read that I think it was AM radio back, when they said other things were going on in the early 1900s, where they went from New York to, or from Paris to New York. I don't think they skipped it off the water. I think they knew, up above, bouncing AM radio. AM radio goes thousands of miles. That's why you can hear it all
Oh
across
yeah.
the same radio station. Now, granted, we have repeaters, but a submarine giving out a ping, bing. You're not going to hear FM radio around the side of a mountain, but you can hear that submarine thousands of miles. And granted, that's sound, but AM amplitude modulation goes way further than frequency modulation. And when they know what they're bouncing it off of, yeah. They call it ionospheric refraction. It's the firmament, just like thunder. What do you think it's vibrating off of up there?
Exactly.
Clouds?
The F1 layer. The F1 layer.
No.
You know about that, Brett? It's this, the tropospheric scattering that we were speaking about in the last show also, that they are bouncing up. It's all tech, radio tech, that they are bouncing it off of the first layer. And that's why it reaches so far, the radio stations that is reaching so far.
Even set from 63, I believe it's 63. And they talk about radio and how it really works, because it really hasn't changed a whole lot. Our amplifiers got better. We call them Rockford Fosgates, but it's still the same concept. And nowhere in there is we're sending it to satellites. There's no mention of that because, well, damn, Russia, quote unquote, did it 4 years earlier. But I have looked up things, and I've posted on my Facebook before it got banned. Things about like how the radio works and how they're bouncing it off the atmosphere and things of that nature. But it is interesting. I mean, but we all know we're already there. Open the eyes a little bit, and man, it's a whole new world.
Exactly, and the satelloons, apart from the buoys and the radio towers, even the satelloons are playing some part, of distance coverage. So
yeah, Google and Facebook
so
sent
obvious.
satelloons during Haiti's tsunami. They sent over satelloons that were right above the area, so that they could give repeating signals. Absolutely. Google and Facebook both invested a lot of money into that. We know those are very real things. And they've also invested even more into the fiber optic cables, the transoceanic
$1
cables.
trillion. $1 trillion was spent in the end of the 90s to connect all the fiber optic between all the continents. $1 trillion or more. How much is that? And why, if their satellite exists? Why, if their satellite exists? Most of the data we are communicating are because of this fiber optic cable. We all are in different places speaking right now. We have a bit of lag, a few seconds, but it's all going through the fiber optic cable.
No doubt. When I was over in Afghanistan and Iraq, my conversations would take a second in between, hearing something and responding. And there's only one way that happens, and that's definitely fiber optically. I love fiber optics. Definitely the wave of the future.
Right. Rick, you want to add something?
I gotta say, I was wondering. I haven't met Brett. By the way, I know everybody else here, but Brett. By the way, my name is Rick. Rick, good to meet you, buddy.
Actually, you and Mark, I think, did a show for a long time on Facebook. You're friends with Michelle. I hate the name drop, but Erwin, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I actually know you through her.
Cool.
Her and I talked several times while I was over there. I think Mark did as well. I was supposed to get in touch with Mark, but it didn't work out. Like once I got home and realized I was never going back over there. But yeah. I used to tune into your show quietly, learn a few things.
That's cool. I was wondering why Mark's not in here. I just sent him a message. He should be here if he's on. That is.
Yeah, I sent the big link names that I followed once upon a time. Once I lost my account, I kind of went a different direction with it. I wasn't so quick to jump back onto the groups that just do nothing but back and forth with clearly individuals that will never wake up. So I of the 100 groups that I was in, I kind of took a step back from it.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's worth it every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm in a few groups. A far larger grouping now, but I'm just not on it nearly as much. But Vikka keeps jabbing that needle like, hey, dude, we need you. You need to come on. So, all right, sir.
that's
Guru.
that's how we met Brett through the groups, and we were like, wow, what's happening? And he was like really fed up with some of the people. Yeah, but sometimes we need to get away. Sometimes we need to come back. But yeah, it's great. It's awesome. Kevin, are you still there, brother?
Yes, yes, sir. Just taking the information in, guys.
So tell us about your friend's experience. What you were commenting us before.
Are you talking about my friend in the office that woke up right away?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting how it takes some people years and years to wake up, but other people, I think they're already like halfway there to begin with, and you can just unplug them. But like I sensed one of him, the guy that I worked with actually, so ended up sending him the documentary, and he gave me the best testimony ever. His instant reaction was, so how can I be a part of this revolution?
That's great.
So
Congratulations
he was
on that.
he was able to wake up right away. So,
You
but
did really
he did watch
well
the
there.
documentary, so there's a huge influence.
Excellent. And I was planning to get somebody soon on a show. He did the art part of our documentary. He did the logo. He did few art stuff for the documentary. His name is Louis, and he just called me the other day, and we're gonna do a show. And it's about he's an art teacher, and he was teaching his student flat Earth with art, with painting, and giving them ideas about flat Earth. And the things got so like heated up that the students started asking questions to the geography teachers about the shape of the Earth, and and the things like just got so worse that they had to had a meeting with the directives of the school. But to make the long story short, they had to fire him. Okay, they
Wow,
fired him, paid him off just so that he can shut up and they could just leave him alone. They
that's
can leave
funny.
the school alone.
Isn't
And
it
the guy
funny
is so
how? Go
happy.
ahead.
Yeah, he's so happy because he's like, man, I was waiting for this moment. It's like he got freedom from a golden cage where he was making good money, but in the end they had to pay him off just to let him say, hey man, take this money and just go away, because in Holland they have freedom of speech. So they couldn't literally screw him up and say, you know what, you're doing something wrong, we're gonna fire you like this. No, they had to literally pay him off. So we're gonna have a soon show with him and discuss that in detail. So that's nice. And the documentary did the most part out of that also.
That is awesome to hear.
I wish that would happen to me.
Let me know when.
Why are artists the only ones taught the law of perspective, though? Right?
Hmm.
No other class teaches how we see, but only artists do.
I've been
Right.
saying for 30 years that artists and philosophers really ought to be running this world, not these actors, the wrong people in charge.
I think it's a literal like blindfold over the people, though.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
if you don't understand how you see and you don't understand the law of perspective, you're literally being blinded. Then
That's for sure.
Right.
But
Brett,
when
are
it
you
comes
still
to a
there?
point, though, can you hear me?
We hear you, but we hear you stranger than before. I don't know if you change the mic or something, or
Sounds like you're in a plane.
Tried to. Hold on a minute.
so I'm gonna give a shout out, guys. Here we are listening to. We have Kevin Bobick today. We have Rick Lotech. We have Jeannie. We had Rob, but he's been having problem with the audio, so I don't know if you're gonna get him back. And our special guest we have today is Brett Freeman, the aeronautical engineer from the documentary. We have some amazing points that we are discussing. We still have a couple of important points that we wanted to discuss. Let's hope his audio gets better. We're gonna take a short break, maybe till these people sort out the audio. All right, guys, we're gonna take a short break, so we have a couple of minutes to check out if we can solve the audio issue, guys. We're gonna be right back. Don't go anywhere.
My name is Joshua Silva. I am a licensed commercial pilot and flight instructor. I have had a lifelong love of aviation and aerospace, and when growing up, I even fancied myself an amateur astronomer.
Number one, I'm a pilot, and when I used to fly out of Long Island towards Nantucket, bottom line here is they're going to give you some type of formula for every 100 miles. They're going to give you some type of XYZ per kilometer squared.
Been in aviation for 21 years. Anything from helicopters to aerostats to big birds, little birds, fighter jets, things with engines, no engines, big blades, little blades, compressor blades.
I woke up to the truth of the flat earth, shape of the earth, as an engineer and a pilot.
I'm a merchant marine. I've been sailing 15 years. I graduated from the Paul Hall Maritime Center out of Piney Point, Maryland. I primarily sail on container ships, tankers, drill ships, military cargo vessels, you name it, I can sail on it.
Work experience. I joined the Navy when I was 17 years old. I had a secret security clearance. There's different levels of security clearance. There's a lower level, then there's a secret, which is what I had.
I'll be providing my in-depth experience of U.S. Navy submarines and how they prove we do not live on a globe Earth. However, due to the nature of my job and the security clearance that I hold, I wish to remain anonymous.
All right, guys, that was Flatten the Curve by Truth Frequency Films. Make sure to check it out. And we've got Kevin, Brett, Rick, and Jeannie. Welcome back, guys. And wanted to make another announcement about GEOM. There's a giveaway of T-shirt of Ferret Radio Live or Flatten the Curve T-shirt. You just got to join the group and invite as many friends as you can to GEOM group. All right, guys. So back with our conversation. Rick, you want to add something, Rick?
Yeah, thank you
about
for
the
mentioning.
giveaway.
Yes. Is my mic on?
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, you bro. I hope so.
Thank you for mentioning our T-shirt contest. It's going to end at the end of next month of April. Yeah, April. And like Vika said, we're giving away a T-shirt. You can see it at the group Flat Earth Geometric Laws and EOSM. It's called. So yeah, we appreciate that.
Yes, and do subscribe to Ferret Radio Live, one of our biggest contributor on YouTube, and also Flat Earth Banjo, Eddie Allen Carr, and Kevin Bobick, that he's also joined here us today. And also Truth in Plain Sight on YouTube, on Facebook, on Telegram, BitChute, Odyssey. So you can find us almost everywhere. So continuing with our conversation with our special guest, Brett Freeman, our next point we wanted to discuss was 8 inches per mile square on a flat plane in two
Oh,
dimension. How does it work, Brett?
Dun, dun, dun.
I love math. All right, so what do you want me to know? How it works in the real world or on the globe?
Yeah, whatever you wanna share
All
regarding
right,
that point,
so
because
look at it like you're on top of a pizza, and the outside diameter of the pizza is the equator. If you're at the equator, and I'll explain it in really simple terms, if you were at the equator and walked 1 mile to the east or the west, you would no longer be on the equator because you're no longer the same distance that you were from the center, which we call north, where you were when you started on the outside circle. So it's going to take you 8 inches to deviate back to the equator, having walked 1 mile in a straight line. Because mind you, that's a perfectly concentric circle. It's an arc. There are no straight lines on that. So if you stand 90 degrees from the center north, where the dot is, and you have your little compass, the compass meaning point with the pencil on it, not
Your flat compass.
the magnetic compass.
Right.
So if you walk 1 mile 90 degrees, you are now south and east or west by 8 inches. But see, they want to tie it to a ball. So they're saying it's 8 inches away from us, or 8 inches down for every mile away. But we know that's not true because water would obviously be lower 1 mile away by 8 inches. But it's not. We know there's no arc. Water cannot do that. You cannot bend water like that. It's not possible. So lay it on the flat ball. Lay the ball flat, sorry. It is 8 inches for every mile for mile, if you are walking east or west from a starting point on the equator with respect to the center north. Like I said, if you walked a mile to the east, you are now south and east because now you're 8 inches further away from the center point being 0 than you were when you were
so
on the equator.
Brett, so that means even the planes take that into account, because if walking people have to take into account, does the plane take that into account, that
They don't
formula?
take curvature into account. No, they're flying to a point. They're flying to a grid coordinate. I mean, I can't make that is a made up man system. That whole GPS, that whole you're talking about what atmospheric pressure. There's a sea level for a reason, right? They have mean sea level. That is 0 feet, and then you have AGL, above ground level or above sea level, ASL, and
Yeah,
then you
like the
also
mountains.
have yes, TACAN. You also have TCAS. You also have the physical shit that they've mapped repeatedly over the years, which you have to keep getting updated, right? Because they say things change and move and all that. Whatever, it hasn't changed. TAWS does not change. TAWS updated that century. But yeah, you got topography, right? So
Yeah, the
the way that
geography.
the
Yeah.
math works is simple. You have a round object that is 25,040 miles. We know that the equator is a designated spot on any map, globe or flat. We know that the diameter is going to be 96 if you're using 2540. Some people use 24,901. So it ends up being like 7,992 miles in diameter.
Right.
Diameter squared times pi will give you your circumference of 25,000. Well, how do you do their formula for the 8 inches per mile squared on a globe? The same way that you would on that. You're going to take the number of feet in a mile, which is 5,280, because that's the measurement we use to measure a mile, and you're going to divide it by the number of miles in diameter. Well, when you take 5,280 divided by 7,992, You come up with this magic number, the number of feet that you're going to deviate mile for mile. And that's 0.66666 feet.
How
And the
many
math works if
sixes?
25,040 or 24, because that's such a large, object, 25,000 miles. It's still 8 inches. It's still 0.666 feet. But you're not doing it over a curved surface in front of you or to your left or to your right. You are on looking at it like a dog on a leash with a stick being the thing that is grounded to in the middle of the yard. He can only go in the circle so big, right? But if he breaks that thing and walks in a straight line, any which way, he's going to be further away from that stick than he was 2 seconds ago. Well, how far is he after 1 mile? He's 8 inches if he's at the equator. Period. It's on a flat surface. Simple. I've tried explaining this to even the most astute flat earthers, and they're like, I can't help you. I don't know. I try to explain it easy. You got to look at it like you're looking above from a pizza point of view, not a ball.
Wow.
What's a more accurate description of where we live, though?
Well, I always use a reference, an in-ground pool. You ever fallen off the edge of an in-ground pool?
Right, right.
No. Well, I'm only as good as the cartographer. My map maker only showed Antarctica being the thing that contained all the water. Now, granted, that's not making it a perfect seal. Even my pool has a pump. That water still goes somewhere and comes back, but it's still contained. But I know that beyond the edge of my pool, there's concrete, there's trees, there's plentiful waterfalls and roads and people. But my map only shows the in-ground pool. Our Gleason map still only shows the in-ground pool. So when somebody says, well, why are we falling off the edge? Size. You ever fallen off the edge of an in-ground pool? Water must be contained or it flows freely. There wouldn't be any water at the edge of the ocean's front if it wasn't contained. It would be flowing elsewhere if it wasn't contained. So this is a big-ass container,
That's the schooling working, though, because you can look at a puddle in a parking lot, a cup of coffee, a pool, a lake, a river, keep going bigger and bigger. But when it gets to the oceans, it curves. That's it. It's the end of it. And it's just hard to see for people. I don't get it.
You got a bucket with a tube on the bottom of it. All right. Well, you hold the bucket and I'll hold the tube. I'm gonna keep walking. Tell me how far I have to go before I can drop the end of my hose lower than the level that's in the bucket and have it not come out.
Right.
Because we know physics. Because science says the minute I lower the hose lower than the level, it should be coming out.
It should dump out. That's
absolutely. Right. It doesn't magically get lower as I go further away from you.
Now, if you had a tube,
enough fluid to fill it up, it's still gonna. The minute I lower it, it's coming out. It's called a waterfall, baby. That's how it works.
And if you had a 5-mile tube, and you held and filled with water, and you held it up, it would still be level.
Yes, it's called siphoning
on both ends.
Suction it out.
That's right. Yeah. I used to do siding like that
because science.
It's perfect. It never fails. Then we used to blow the water in the other guy's face. up on chimneys and stuff.
Want to say hello to Brandon Neal.
I didn't know you had these many questions. I guess people had some questions.
I just wanted to say hello to Brandon Neal in the chat, and then also Captain Cayman, and then Mark Hollander. Hey, Mark, how are you, brother? Mark saying, hey, guys, I'm watching my grandson play quarterback for his spring football league. He's a smashing showmate.
Good luck.
Nice one,
fun.
Mark.
Very cool.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions, but okay, this was not this question I didn't have, but it just you were commenting about that you worked on aerostats. Yeah. So how is it changed from the 50s, 60s? We know that aerostat was a big transport before the Rockefellers, bought in the fossil fuels, and many think that the Hindenburg was an accident. but nothing was an accident. It was just
That
a
that
show
that
to
was a false
bring
flag.
to yeah to take out the tech, the aerostat tech, and bring in the fossil fuel. So what could you add, Brett, about that tech, and how is it evolved and what's been happening? Any
Well, I used it for more of a proactive approach to some of the air bases isolated over Afghanistan and Iraq. I worked for Lockheed Martin on their systems because they had ISR platforms. But I mean, it is helium driven, right? So it's lighter than air gas, so it's going to rise. We had a 1-inch cable that had fiber optic in it. That was literally on a thousands of pounds semi truck platform that this thing was housed on. We had takeaways, the thing would disappear and be gone. Gravity took a day off, lazy bitch, and it'd just be gone. But the system itself, it's 74,000 cubic feet. I mean, the volume of a house, weighs more than a truck. And this is what I used as the platform last week when we were talking about all things conspiracy, and they know that I stand in mine. Like I was saying before the show, it's not just limited to this, because obviously we open our eyes to a lot of things when we go down the rabbit holes. The joke now is we ran out of conspiracy theories because they all came true. But the aerostat was definitely the beginning to me opening it up, because I'm like, it just makes sense. And then one thing led to another. And then, I'll be honest, it was the election of 2016. Just before that, when it was building up, when other conspiracies started popping up, that I woke up. I found this. Eric Dubé gets the credit. It was just a video that was under the All Things Conspiracy tab, and I dove in and never came up. So
Good.
Oh yeah. It's I was lucky enough to even find also flat Earth, because in my even in 2015, 16, it wasn't coming up easy for some people. Even if you are into many conspiracy like moon landing and hollow Earth, and you're still just stuck there. It doesn't let you go beyond. So for me also, it was lucky enough to find flat Earth. Like in a hidden way. It wasn't flat Earth video. It was just something hidden. Like, you should check this out, and that's how I stumble upon flat Earth. So yeah, I can relate to that too. That some people could really have. My question about regarding the aerostats. So it's working with helium. It's rising up, easy to you don't need thrust. It's rising up. But what is
nope,
propulsion in it? Is it the fan?
it isn't. It
Is it the
isn't. Nope.
propellers?
It has no propulsion. It's a kite. So you have 3 fins on the back side of it. The nose will face into the direction of the wind and will actually move through the wind until such time the tether tightens it up and keeps it taut. If it's too violent, if it's too windy, we would bring it down so it doesn't get destroyed, and things of that nature. Which it's a balloon. It's bound to get torn up at some point. But no, it faces in the direction of the wind at all times, and it wants to cut away. It wants to go up because it weighs less than the air that it's currently in, right? It weighs less than the medium, so it rises. It's the Gravity Buster 4000 because it weighs about 4,000 pounds. I mean,
Yeah, you have aerostats that are tethered, and they are fixed for antenna purpose, communication purpose. Those are one type, and there are other ones which were the older ones where people were riding on that.
yeah, like the
Okay.
Acron, the Goodyear, what's the word?
Dirigibles.
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
one.
These ones, the once it's flying, I don't think if it's windy they're gonna. They were quite stable, I think so. And some they even show some kind of, I don't know, because one of the latest one, the Airlander that I saw, it looks like it has a propeller behind.
Even
So I don't know how.
football games,
Maybe
they
it's for
have
just
that are
steering. Maybe it's for steering.
Yeah, they have the ones that are propelled. The ones I was on was not propelled; it was tethered. But the Goodyear blimp over football games, they fly through that no problem. They go up and down as they want to.
What keeps them at a certain height?
there's a plenum inside. So it's filled with helium, but there's a valve, if you will, that if you want to rise, you let air out of this valve, meaning that the overall volume weighs less than the outside, obviously buoyancy, same thing, way buoyancy is. So if you want to come down, you open this valve up and air will flow into it and make it heavier. And then to be more equal with the outside temperature, atmosphere, it'll slow down. So you're constantly, it's like a
it's like a ballast?
A ballast, yeah. Exactly.
Like in a submarine almost, right?
Absolutely. If you want to things, there you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. I don't know why these diehards that want to contend with us all the time can't comprehend some of this stuff.
It's the school. We're taught to, what I think of my mom. What did my mom tell me? Don't lie, or I'm telling Santa.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Ma.
Does Santa still have a NORAD government website, or is it the ISS of the same nature?
I used to follow Spot the Station. I think they both probably do. But I used to follow Spot the Station, and I remember watching something fly by, and I was like, wow, look at that. And it's fast, but it doesn't look like it's 17,000 miles an hour fast.
Listen, 17,000 miles means that it's an hour and a half.
Yeah, around circle the world.
So you are literally seeing it every hour and a half.
Yeah.
That was not fast enough to be an hour and a half flight.
How? What keeps it in that circle? How does it steer?
Oh, you mean how do you propel through nothing? I've asked this question several times. Zero is not possible in a vacuum, sir. I don't know, but hey, I guess I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't make sense to me, but I don't know how you do that. Steering in a vacuum.
I have one question. I have one more question regarding the aerostats. So there are some claims that these old aerostats were working on static electricity, or the word stat comes because they are using some energy from the ether or something. What could you add on that, bro?
Absolutely. There's no telling what the Tartarian, mindset back in the day, so cathedral, right, is a cathode. If you look at any cathedral, they had their own power, they had their own energy. But what they're talking to you about now is they stripped it from us. There were flying vehicles that probably made ours look like garbage back in the day.
Sure.
Sidewalks in Paris in the 1800s. I mean, they had electricity and power, but it's been stripped. It's been controlled, corralled,
destroyed.
They run a wire from that facility that's owned by these people to your house and tell you this is the only way you're going to get power. So if you want it, you're going to pay for it. I mean, talking to you right now, I'm paying for it. But yeah, Tartarian technology, the technology of yesteryear. I mean, only now is Nikola Tesla shit. And granted, even some of that may have been fabricated to some degree.
Yep.
But they always him bad guy. You know what I mean? But
they always prop a guy up.
Yeah, yeah.
And then sometimes, like a Tesla, they'll Tesla him. Poof. Like Royal Rife. He didn't go anywhere, but they knew about him.
Yeah, I do believe that the older dirigibles would actually attach themselves to larger structures. The elite and the wealthy back in the day, the Aspirs, the DuPonts, perhaps the people as young as the Wahlbergs that far back, did travel in such things or have the ability to do so. I think everything we've been told is a lie. So
look at the old pictures. You take any amount. Take 100 pictures from 1900, 1880, let's say, and look at all the skies. All the skies have that vanilla sky look, and they seem to be sort of edited out. They have no clouds. All the skies look the same. Maybe not 100% of them. You get a few here and there.
When John D. Rockefeller founded the Board of Education in 1903, become a thing in 1908.
Right.
He forever took every child out of the home.
Yep.
And in his book, it says quiet weapons for silent war, silent weapons for quiet wars. He states, I want a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers.
Yeah. He didn't need ours. He didn't want us.
Going back to the whole globe thing real quick, we all know that the reason that they did, the question comes up, well, why would they do such a thing? Why would they want you to not be able to be controlled tomorrow? If you're married with kids, I can control all of you instead of you going and fighting them, because my cartographer stopped drawing the map at Antarctica. But if tomorrow, unlike the rat who will just move on, if I find out that I'm in a cage, I'm gonna go on to explore. I'm a human being. I'm nosy. What's that?
Curious, like
So, what are they going to be in control of? The 5 families or the 13 families, whoever they are, they're not going to be in control of shit. But you draw a circle, a globe, a sphere, and say this is it. Well, now you everything. I mean,
exactly.
Go.
Yeah.
I was adding another day to say about the same point, because it's a prison planet, because it's more easy to have an imagination, because the people know that they're going to go around and come around on a globe. That's why many Indiana Jones are not going to be exploring the globe, because they know that they're going to come back to the same place. So I think that this needs a whole topic, a whole show for itself, like, about Antarctica and more lands and how these people are hiding, and how Antarctica,
Admiral Byrd said it's got the size of land down there, the size of the United States. And it was back in the 50s, and then that guy had 3 ticker tape parades, which is unheard of, and he was the youngest admiral in the Navy ever. And they killed him, though. He died of a heart attack at a very young age. All of a sudden, mysteriously.
The only one whose book wasn't published, too.
I'm sorry?
The only one whose book was not published. They never
really?
Yeah.
Oh, gee, look at that.
Published it. Yeah. He did his interview, his hour-long interview, and he made a few things very clear. But they killed him for it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
One must ask, if the equator is 25,000 miles in circumference, one must ask why it took Cook 63,000 miles and 2.5 years to circumnavigate a simple continent of Antarctica.
Right.
He was losing 8 miles a day. He was losing 8 miles off the map that had always been known to be correct. When he sailed
really?
They were losing 8 miles a day. It was
so he was getting to places too quick?
No, he was losing it.
He was losing it. Oh, the other way.
So it was taking him a lot longer to get to what he had already known was a fact.
Okay, right.
So it took him 2.5 years, and then a French guy did it like 2 years behind him. But how can the widest point of our oblate spheroid, 25,000 miles, maybe fatter on the bottom? Why did it take him 63 just to go around a simple continent of ice that 120 countries have some pact, to control and keep secret in the name of, I don't know, preservation, right?
And that's the only treaty that lasted that long ever. None of them last. Treaties are broken every day, all the time, by everybody. But the Antarctica Treaty remains. That's
that's what I wanted to add. So I think that the Antarctica Treaty is more than 500 years old. I have some research done, but that in itself needs a whole show for that. So that's why I was saying the prison planet, and I even think that even Admiral Byrd could be
puppet
martyr.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Could be. Because it could be a mention, because if he was on the mainstream media, so maybe he was there for some propaganda. There was totally something else going on in Antarctica, because they are confusing people with the UFO stuff at the Antarctica because of the Nazis and many other things. They with the with Admiral Byrd going there, and many different stories they build up, more lands, and just to confuse more people. But what was really happening there was, I don't want to give it away all, but there was this for extra lands and extra civilization. They just don't want more contact, So we're gonna do a show about this in itself, and I have some evidence that we can prove that the Antarctica Treaty is more than 500 years old, and there are many countries on it. Okay, every country is on it. That's why nobody can leave. That's the only reason, because I don't believe that at the outer skirt of the south, where if it's Australia, and we have that ice wall right there. It's not happening, man. It's not happening.
Oh, that's a
So
really good point.
That's awesome.
We always think of the end of Brazil being most of Antarctica, but it's there's a lot more to it. It's kind of concentrated in
they
that.
say that it's more easy to go from South America to South Africa by land, by extra lands, than going over Atlantic Sea.
Wow.
What?
Atlantic Ocean. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I recently heard that too, Vika, about the Antarctica Treaty being more than 500 years old. Very recently.
Aren't there like
Yeah,
different
maybe it's me.
sections of
Yeah,
Antarctica?
I'm wondering.
Go ahead, Kevin.
No, aren't there different sections of Antarctica that are owned by like certain countries? Have you guys heard
No,
that?
nobody owns it, but they claim it. This is our part
Well,
here.
of course,
We're doing
claim it or
science
whatever,
here.
yeah. But like Chile owns that section.
Right.
Argentina owns that section.
There's
South
flags
America owns
all
that
around it.
section. Yeah.
Yeah. They section it off. There's abandoned military facilities down there. I said that 5 times fast. A local newsman just went down. A local weatherman just went down to see the eclipse, and he was saying that there's abandoned military facilities down there, and that's so crazy because aren't they down there to protect it and preserve it and keep everything clean?
Oh, they'll damn sure make your ass don't show up there.
What's that?
They damn sure make sure you don't ever show up there.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yeah, that little. Oh, I took a boat tour from, King George Island or Penguin Island or whatever they call it now. to
Corona Island.
Didn't. No, you didn't. Everyone who's ever left
No,
a review has 4 letters in their name. Anybody who's ever tried to book it either has their money stolen or the captain got sick, couldn't make the trip. There's always a reason why.
There's a few ship tours that go there, and last I heard that they were all affiliated with
Yes.
Obama's science secretary.
They are all
or his wife. His wife. So they changed the name through the wife, and it's all going through those people. You can't get there without them. In other words.
And it's under one corporation or corporate umbrella.
Right.
Yeah, they did that in like 2015, I believe. I didn't see when this whole thing started. One of the first things I was asking about was, don't they have tours? Don't I see penguins on that?
Sure, we got tours.
Yeah,
on, it's like $12,000 too. So that's suspicious to have that monopolized.
All right, guys. So before we jump in our main point that we had Brett here for, anybody else have any question before we jump into that?
didn't know there was one.
I just want to give a shout out to Cindy Holland, that she's there in the chat. Big shout out, Cindy.
I know Cindy.
To you.
Hi, Cindy.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello. From Kevin Bobick.
All right, so let's get to the main question, the main point. Jet fuel. What's happening with jet fuel, Brett? We have so much question all around. We were last week also on Globebusters. Also, we discussed there, and then also on HelioPsychosis after that show, and we were discussing. And it's that's like people have different views. We have few comments also about that. Some people think it's a hoax. Some people think it's not. So we have few comments. What do you would like to add, Brett?
One thing, it's not a hoax. All right, and I can eyes roll. All right, and people tuning out. But I'm going to make it simple from the standpoint of something that somebody uses in Dubai, known as that jet wing. And I explained this earlier before the show. They have enough fuel on a compressor. It's a turbine. It's a turbocharger, like the one on the Camaro, that squeezes this air. and puts out 60,000 RPMs. It's propelling a man with a wingsuit on forward in flight. He cannot take off from the ground and just get up to altitude and do it. Why? Because it doesn't run on compressed air. It runs on fuel. So it's fuel to expand these gases after it's ignited and get the compressor to turn. Compressed air does not turn the compressor. Compressed air is the result of the compressor turning after expanding gases that have just been ignited in the combustion chamber. That is how a turbine aircraft engine works. It does not. Now, don't get me wrong. They are very fuel efficient. But when I tell you that every drop of fuel that can be put into those wings minus the useful load or the passengers and the cargo of an A380, this is not your mother's 37 from 1965. This is a city that weighs over 1,000 pounds, and it's going to take 1,000,000 pounds to get it off the ground. Not of weight, of thrust. These engines are far more fuel efficient, but they still require constant ignition to propel that city through the air. Those wings definitely house every drop of fuel that those things send. Now, do they take off with the max fuel with a full load of people? No, they don't, because you still have ramp weight. You have a maximum ramp weight. You're talking about the maximum weight that aircraft can possibly be, as opposed to the useful load that it's going to need to take off. There's a maximum ramp weight. There's a maximum takeoff weight. The maximum landing weight is way less. So let's put something in perspective. You take off from London in an A380 and you're coming to New York. You're about an hour into flight and now you've got an emergency. Are you going to just land, or are you going to have to sit there and circle dumping all that fuel that you say you don't have before you come and land? Because you better be about 600,000 pounds less than you were when you took off. Well, if nothing but compressed air turns the compressor, which isn't happening, then you wouldn't have no reason to do a dump over the ocean, and hopefully it's not a city of people. But it happens all the time. They take off, have an emergency in-flight situation, and they got to do a fuel dump.
So do you think that this has to do with military and commercial flights?
I think that whoever said that it's a hoax simply needs to understand how the combustion engine, the turbine, works.
With combustion, you have to burn something.
Yes. So there's a flight from Denver that took off 6 months ago. And you see the video of the engine of it still on fire. Well, the reason it's still on fire is because you can actually, I think you can actually almost even hear the engine with the igniters. Well, when you have it on auto ignition, what is it igniting? Air? I think 3 things for fire. You need an ignition source, which is the igniters themselves. You need air in a blended ratio. And what's that other important? Oh, fuel. That's right. You have nozzles that are constantly either spurting in 2 sets, primaries and secondaries, or you have the type that's just constantly spraying a constant pattern. But the point is, it is constantly igniting. It is constantly expanding gases in the combustion chamber and going through the turbine section and turning the compressor, which is squeezing that air out, allowing you to generate thrust, just like your car. We talked about it earlier before the show. Eddie Murphy puts the banana in the tailpipe trick. Well, the car didn't go for a reason, because the air coming out of it, but it still took the combustion in the engine to get the car to move. It's not a hoax. It's just we're behind on the technology. They're far more efficient. A JT9D, I've worked on them. 7R4Es, those are big ass engines. We had it on the 767 that I worked on. Very fuel efficient, but I can guarantee you that wing's full of 200,000 pounds of fuel per wing. The 747 houses just less than the A380, but yet is nowhere in comparison to size. That 747 now is dwarfed by this city. People look at that.
They're huge.
They can't comprehend how big this thing is. I used to see them every time I flew to UAE. I've never been on one, but I have seen them. And I think the 777 and the 787 is big. These things are cities on wheels. So understand, The reason the guy is not flying around for hours in his flight suit after he jumps out of the airplane and starts his little jet wing and can only literally have 15 minutes to fly is because that's all the fuel he has. But he's using the same damn principle to get from the plane to the ground. So he gets up there at 30,000 feet, whatever he's got, breathing his oxygen, jumps out of the plane, and basically flies to the ground. He's not up there for hours on end because he doesn't have the fuel for it. It still takes fuel to turn that compressor. The compressed air is the result of the compressor turning, not what does it, not what drives it.
Okay, I have one question for you, Brett, but I just wanted to say hello to Bob, Globebuster. Hey, Bob, I just sent you the link of the stream if you want to join. All right, we are here. And let's continue, Brett. So you think that the most of the fuel is in the wing, or it's also in the fuselage? Because you think that weight, it can hold up the weight
absolutely
of that quantity? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely it can. The wing itself is wet wing design. So that means that right beyond the panel, right on the underside of the wing there is the fuel tank. People are like, well, where's the fuel tank? How come in the crash it didn't explode? Well, that's because the fuel wasn't atomized. See, back in the day, we used to use this highly explosive JP4, and you take a match calling you next to can. This stuff has to be atomized, which means it has to be in the form of a mist. Meaning, if it's in a puddle on the ground, I can take a match and use it as a heater. And I'm sure if you were in Afghanistan or Iraq in the last 20 years, you probably did that a few times because it got cold. But coffee cans full of JPA work well as heaters. Ain't nobody blowing up because it's not atomized. It's not in the form of a spray or a mist.
It's like diesel. You could do that with.
Yeah, I mean,
sort of.
So another thing too is like when the pilot's driving forward, when he pulls forward on that throttle, he's giving it gas. Is he turning the compressor blades faster through, I don't know, air? Or is it a mixture of the gas and the air, creating a richer mixture, allowing more of that gas expansion faster, turning that compressor faster, which is going to create more thrust? You know, I mean, we're looking at a big jet, but a fighter jet has a drop tank where he's only using fuel to get to altitude because they're using the fuel, you know, the afterburner takeoff or whatever. It's the same concept. And when they're in straight and level flight, obviously there's less resistance up there, so they throttle back. And maybe that's where people get confused. They throttle back, so now they're just flying with air. They're not even using gas. No, they're not. When you get up to speed in your car, you let off the accelerator. It's the same damn thing.
All right, Jeannie, you have, can you read one of the comments that I sent you before? Bob, you can still join us, Bob. I just sent you a link by messenger of the StreamYard if you want to join. Also want to say hello to Fisherman in a Box. Lon, how are you doing, guys? Also check out Fisherman in a Box.
I didn't even know there was a...
Go ahead, Jeannie.
Oh, you ready? All right. Here's one from, well, I won't say the guy's name, but it says, guys, I've been an aircraft engineer for 37 years, 12 military and the rest civilian. I still certify aircraft for a living. If you want to know about fuel burn, including modern aircraft, I'm happy to talk. I say this because I really like Dave Weiss, but he's completely wrong about jet fuel and modern aircraft using electric engines. It's all readily, easily available. Noise abatement is a huge part of modern jet engine design and, of course, efficient fuel burns. Go up to the flight deck next time you fly and you can see live fuel flow, fuel used, fuel quantity in the wings. Fuel planning is a huge deal in the airlines. I'd be happy to film a refuel and engine ground run or whatever. I burned 2 tons of fuel on a B737 the other day, doing a full power assurance run. Oh, and of course, we know we live on a flat extended plane. Brett, I was just going to ask you about the fueling.
Sorry, I got cut off.
Did you hear any of that?
No, I had to log back into it completely.
Oh, all right. Vic, you want me to do that again?
Do that. Maybe the people hear it again too, so maybe get some more points to add. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So this guy writes, guys, I've been an aircraft engineer for 37 years, 12 military and the rest civilian. I still certify aircraft for a living. If you want to know about fuel burn, including modern aircraft, I'm happy to talk. I say this because I really like Dave Weiss, but he's completely wrong about jet fuel and modern aircraft using electric engines. It's all readily, easily available. Noise abatement is a huge part of modern jet engine design, and of course, efficient fuel burns. Go up to the flight decks next time you fly, and you can see live. You can see live fuel flow, fuel used, fuel quantity in the wings. Fuel planning is a huge deal in the airlines. I'd even be happy to film a refuel and an engine ground run or whatever. I burned 2 tons of fuel on a B737 the other day doing a full power assurance run. Oh, and of course we know we live on a flat extended plane.
That's 4,000 pounds of fuel doing a simple engine run or a hit check, power assurance check. That's just a simple check that I don't know how long it would take that plane to do it. It takes our helicopters a little bit to do it. But 4,000 pounds of fuel for a simple little engine run?
That's what he said.
They don't even have passengers in the plane when they do that. This is a maintenance action. So, right. I mean, come on. This is... I've had many arguments about this. But it got me off to Facebook for a while because I was just astounded with some of this stuff.
But how many gallons in 2 tons now, you said? I could do it.
Oh, how many gallons? So you take 4,000 pounds. He said 2 tons of fuel.
Right,
so
divided by 7.14.
It's about 7.8 because water's 8.1, but it's 7.3 to 7.9, I think, for the fuel.
So, yeah,
and oil's like 6.8, I think.
Right, water's 8, 7.9.
Yeah, 8.1 is desalinated water, I believe.
Okay, right. So
it's roughly 7. Let's just say 7.6 to 7.7.
Okay.
So you're talking 500 gallons. 500, just no, a little bit more. 550 gallons ish.
How long would it take to pump something like that? That's a lot.
No. So there's pressure. They're done through pressure.
High pressure.
People see that one little hose.
Right.
Dude, that thing is. So I worked on a Dash 7.
This blow a hole in the wall.
1960s technology, the Havilland Dash 7, and it housed 1,500 gallons. And I'm telling you that it would do that without batting an eye. It would take like a minute and a half to fill that thing up.
Really?
And so you got fuel farms that are underneath these big airports. So people see this little bitty hose hooked up or whatever.
Right.
And what they don't see is that they're doing it to both sides of an A380. And they have entire, 2 million gallon drums over there right off the airport site that are pumping that crap underneath the airport the whole time. And it'll do it in 15 minutes. The whole plane's fueled up. So there is fuel in the underneath because you have an APU in the back of the aircraft. So the question was, well, is there fuel in the fuselage? Absolutely, there's fuel running down the fuselage. As a matter of fact, the A380 even houses it in the tail.
Okay. So it sounds. How do they get that pressure? It must be some sort of a sweep in there to disperse it a little. It can't just hit something square on, right? Is that? I'm just trying to picture it. Well, when the fuel comes in, it's got to hit something. Would it hit some sort of a sweep to soften the blow from? Because firemen.
Well, I imagine there's probably a 4-flow divider immediately, right? Like a big ass, like a spike, a 4-sided spike. Like if you're going fishing,
splits it up. It
that that immediately, and then it's traveling forward or into the tubing. I'm not an engineer as far as that goes. I don't care how it's dispersed into the tanks. No, I only need to know that the cross tubes work.
Right.
That the valves. Do what they need to do, and the fuel pumps.
Well, the reason why
are anti-gravity fuel pumps.
The reason why I ask is because, firemen have hoses that they can knock through brick walls with because there's so much pressure. Yeah. And I'm picturing the pressure coming out of this hose in an airplane wing. It must be some sort of a sweep to soften the blow. It can't just square off and hit.
Yeah, I imagine immediately dispersed and dispensed. In different directions, so it's not 1,500 pounds of pressure going in one little tube.
Okay, that's what.
But
pretty much. All right.
But what I wanted to say earlier too is these wings are 14 feet thick. So
Right.
people don't see that.
No, I
People
never
don't
knew that.
see that that wing is taller than your house is. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
crazy.
So
Yeah.
you're lifting a city up with something that's hollow like that. The first part of the fuel that gets used is the inner part of the wings. It's the outer part of the wings that gets used in the flight. So it is compartmentalized, but the inner part of the wings are the fuel that is used first. And that's for stability. So the end of the wing isn't, flapping around when you're up there, doing 300, 400, 500 miles an hour.
Right.
But yeah, you get more stability when the fuel's out on the ends, or more of it's out there. But people, they see an extended flap. Well, there's no wing there. Look, it's magic.
A separate
No,
part,
it's not.
though, isn't it?
It's far more efficient, but it is not running on compressed air. And they talked about electric engines. I get it. Yes, it does have an electronic box. It's got a full FADEC with a DECU on it for controlling or for indicating purposes. It still requires an ignition source.
Right.
And the only way you're going to get thrust to turn that compressor is fuel. Compressed air does not turn the compressor.
Excellent. Love it.
Does make sense. And it makes sense the way you
compressor
broke it down.
is the result of the compressor turning, not the other way around.
Hey, Brett, do you think the Tartarians had airplanes that ran on just electricity?
Man, I imagine they had far more than we could ever even.
They had blimps.
The knowledge is so suppressed. You know what I mean?
That's how they did the
I
Nazca
think
lines.
we are a dumbed down version of what used to be. I think every time you see a movie, Indiana Jones style, where they're coming up to the mountain that looks like somebody chiseled into it, I now tell you, no, that used to be an actual building that has melted. Something melted the structure around it, and we call that ruins or a mountain. I think they had so like the statues in the Vatican. What, that guy hand chiseled all that shit? Because we can't even do that today.
No, that's a big
That
problem.
is cast. I don't know how else to say it, but those are cast to some degree. And they have the technology to do it.
There's
Some
no
guy
way
who's
they
spent 80
they-
years doing that because they only live to be like 40. So, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, and Michelangelo has how many of them?
Yeah, exactly. Like
what
three
else did he
guys
do?
did all those statues, bro? I don't know.
Nah, no way.
All right. Guys, let's not drift away from the topic. I wanted to continue about the jet fuel because we have so many questions. Anybody who have any questions regarding the jet fuel, you can leave in the comments. I wanted to ask about Brett. You were saying about that the fuel, it's been sprayed when it's happening that. So does it affect? It goes in liquid. It doesn't go as gas when they fill it in the plane, right? And you are doing some comparison with the trucks, actual truck sizes. Could you?
So on the bigger trucks, those are nothing more than the connecting ports for the fuel farms that are underneath the tarmac. Yes, they have the 10,000 gallon fuel trucks. But like I said to somebody earlier, if you take away the cab, take away all the fuel hoses, take away all the wheels, take away the damn bed that it's laying on, and put that tank on the ground, you have nothing but a 5-foot tank that's 25 feet long. This wing is 180 feet long, 14 feet thick. You can stack up several of those trucks. But see, people see that big ass truck with the 450 or the 4500 Dodge, front end on it. And they're saying, well, look at that. You're trying to stack 27 elephants up on these wings. You know what? I could probably fit 27 elephants in there, but it would be mighty messy. So yes, they connect it. They have a hose that goes from the ground, like a big ass a manhole cover underneath the plane for that specifically, and it's connected from that hose through the pump in the truck that's driving it into the wings, and it's very fast. It's not a hoax. I wish I didn't have to fuel all of the planes that I have had to fuel in my life. I was one of only 4 people that flew a 767 back, and we didn't have any fuel services in San Bernardino. If anybody's from San Bernardino area, give a shout out to Scott Spencer, a piece of crap. But anyway, Yeah, we sat there for 9 months getting this bird airworthy, and we ferry flew it back to Melbourne, Florida, and it took a long time because we didn't have that service. But if it was just running on compressed air, man, it would have saved me a lot of time and a hell of a lot of money.
Okay, so many people think that it's happening some kind of levitation, like how do we levitate with the similar principle of Victor somebody, some German guy who did that about the spirals and how things could levitate because creating a magnetic field around them. And do you have any idea? Is not that kind of technology in combination that's working with the engines? You think so? Or that's
No.
totally something different?
I mean, and it's not to downplay anybody who has degrees, but I have the degrees. That don't mean anything. I don't have an engineering degree, but I've been doing this for 21 years. I've been working on turbines. I've been working on turboprops. I've changed 4,500 nozzles out every year, and if I'm lying, I'm dying for a reason.
No, it's not about lie or who is right or who is wrong or who
Levitation,
is lying or
I don't understand. It's not
yeah.
anti-gravity. It's not magnets. It's not any of that stuff. It's not. It's a far more efficient engine than they had on the 737. But people can't comprehend how much fuel and how big these things are. That's what we need to get back to. If you want to get back to the fuel being used, let's talk about the size of this aircraft. Because when they were growing up, we had 737s, and the 747 was the monster.
Right.
A lot has changed in the last 25 years. That 747 ain't nothing. And yet it's still a huge aircraft. But this A380 is a city on wheels. It holds like 800 people. It's got
I've flown in them.
decks.
Yeah, they're
3
huge. Yeah,
floors
they're
on it, right?
freaking huge. Yeah.
It's not running on compressed air.
Yeah, because I was also commenting, even Rob and even Gene, that could be possible, like, that the amount of energy required to get off the ground of that weight is not happening. And I also wanted to add that there are APU generators. Maybe I thought maybe it was for the APU generator,
No,
those fuel.
the APU does the groundwork. So like when you're loading the passengers up and you're putting in your flight information and all that kind of stuff, the APU is used so that you're not using battery power. It's an auxiliary power unit, but it does run on fuel. So you have a dedicated area where there's fuel that is used to operate the APU, which typically is used before pullback. Once it's pushed back, you hear the ding, and then everything kind of switches over power-wise. That's when
Right.
you know, all right, well, obviously they've done what they've needed to do. The checks are good. Doors already closed, I hope, and they're ready to move forward. But they're using the APU in that moment. It's not like it's an extra power source, providing horsepower, in flight. That's not what that is.
Okay. Okay. So other thing I wanted to ask is that when a jet is on the tarmac ready to take off, you really see those fumes behind the jet engines. What are these fumes? Is the heat or is just the air
Well, yeah, you
that
see
you're?
the waves. That's the heat resonating off the ground, right? But that's also air being moved in front of your face. Isn't that kind of a combination of both? You're seeing an extreme amount of, it's all waves, right? Whether it's radio waves, heat waves. Well, air being pushed through an engine that fast is still creating waves. So it's just, yeah,
Yeah,
of
but
course, that's going to be some exhaust. That's going to be some heat. That's going to be the product of a jet engine running. But let me be clear about something first, okay? Because I think some people might be confused about max takeoff weight. If you have a full load of people, there may be a useful load that is not indicative of having a full tank of gas, especially if it's a puddle jump between Jakarta somewhere and somewhere else in the Middle East. They may only need X amount of fuel. Now, granted, they may only limit the passenger, but they're not going to be as heavy as they can possibly be on the ramp and then try to take off because you're going to exceed that weight. And it's like, just like I said, when you're landing, there's a reason you have a maximum landing weight. You can take off at 1,200,000, but you're probably only going to be able to land at about 700, which is basic empty weight, and then damn near, your passengers or whatever it is, and the percentage of the fuel that you didn't dump, obviously. But there's a reason why you have an emergency procedure and you dump the fuel over an ocean or the mountain range, because you can never land that plane with the amount of fuel or the amount of weight that you took off with. Those
You're gonna
fold up
crash
in a heart.
land.
Those wings will snap
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Well, it's not because they're empty. I just want people to take a step back and think about this stuff logically. I can say it till I'm blue in the face, but it still requires fuel to create the thrust in a turbine engine.
For combustion to begin with.
Well, I'm just saying we use combustion engines still. There's all kinds of shit out there that we don't know about. They're using magnets and the levitation stuff they're talking about. I was part of a Lockheed Martin program that they do some weird stuff.
Yeah, the new crafts that work on different kind of technology may work on some different tech than fuel.
Yes, I don't doubt that at all. I mean, nobody can deny that, right? Fuel is antiquated and outdated, but the problem is in the commercial industry, it's the easiest, it's the cheapest for them. They're not going to go spend $12 billion on some research and development program. They're going to buy a Boeing 787. They're going to buy an A380, which turned out to be not the best idea due to the cost. But they're going to buy something that already works and is proven. And those require fuel. And they're going to get it out of you. And they may be losing money because they're not filling the seats up due to, the stuff that's been going on lately and whatever. But it still requires fuel.
Exactly. So other thing I wanted to add was, what do you think about this? Because having that power, that potency during takeoff or during flight or during descent or during some incidents, so having that power at your hand to control the plane, so maybe that's why you need that fuel too. Could it be that?
Yes. When he puts his flaps on, when he's coming into land, right? So he is now basically stalling in midair. Somebody was talking about how they saw a plane like literally hovering Matrix style because it was coming in so slow.
Yeah, Jersey.
He literally has to drive that throttle forward in order to put more fuel into the engine so that he can overcome the stall point, because he's literally falling out of the sky at that point. He's literally just like there, like 100 miles an hour, whatever that the deal was. I mean, I've seen it where they look like they're going backwards because they're going so slow. With respect to the air, he's going forward, but with respect to me, it looks like he's going slower than I am. But he has to drive beyond that stall speed or the slowness that he's creating upon himself by creating more surface for the flaps. I mean, he's slowing himself down so that he can line up to land.
Exactly, and if it's a turnaround,
you're not using a compressor.
Exactly, and if you need to do a turnaround,
go ahead and drive that forward. You're dumping fuel into that shit, and it's getting really hot, and it's generating thrust to overcome those flaps, so you can continue moving forward.
Exactly, and you need, in case you have to do go around, you need some fuel too, in a way, because you won't have that potency to go back and fly up again and do a go around.
I would like to think that the engines nowadays, as big as they are, sip fuel compared to the things that we used to work on. I mean, I used to work on radials too, but back in the day, they were just pigs. Today, they're far more efficient, much bigger. I'm not taking that away from anybody, but I can tell you, every turbine I've ever worked on, including the big boys, it's a fact. You're gonna use the suck, squeeze, bang, blow. You're sucking in the air, you're mixing it with the fuel, you're getting a bang out of it with a blended fuel ratio that he has predetermined by the throttle. It's going to expand in the combustion chamber, and it's going to go into the turbine section, which is turning that compressor, which is going to allow compressed air in stages to come out, generating your thrust forward.
Okay, Cindy Holland says SR-71 used to lose lots of fuel out of the wing during flight. I saw this firsthand when I worked at NASA in the mid 1990s. Yes, Cindy Holland worked for NASA, and she's also a flat earther, and she for sure have amazing points to add to. So soon we're gonna have her. What you could say about that, Brett?
She's absolutely right. The seals would have like 3 to 4 inch gaps on the ground because they would expand so much after they got going and heat up. So on the ground, it would leak like a sieve. So right when they get up to altitude, they have to refuel immediately. I mean, not the fact that it's doing, unclassified 2,000 miles an hour, but yeah, it did leak because they needed the seals had to expand so much once they got going.
I was on the Intrepid, and they had the Blackbird on there, and they told us that it's when it's fueling up, it spills all over the place on deck.
Yeah,
it takes off, and when it's going that fast, it stretches and it closes all the gaps.
Yeah, and they immediately refuel. Most fighter jets will refuel once they get up, if they're going to be doing any kind of flying, because it takes so much to get off the ground, and they really don't have a whole lot, so they're having to refuel. They don't have a city, worth of fuel in their wings.
So, Jeannie, there's a comment about a F-15 there in one of the comments that we passed.
Yeah, let me find it. I got a couple pieces of paper here. Sorry, guys.
Man, I wish my brother was on right now because he's actually currently in the Air Force as a Tron F-15s.
But he's not a flat earther, so he won't.
Oh hell yeah, he is.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Right.
he is. And
Thanks to Brett.
we, at the same time, for completely different reasons. He knew that his systems could never do what they said, which was talking to satellites and disseminating information and giving targeting coordinates, and he just for totally unrelated reasons. We at the same time found the truth for very yeah.
Excellent, Brett. You're doing a great man. You're doing a great job.
Excellent, Brett. Nice to hear that. Yep.
That was great. Both you guys.
Did you find the comment, Ginny?
I did. I think I got it here. It says, I would guess it works like this. The high-speed spinning metals, which compose numerous sets of turbine blades, create a type of toroidal field, facilitating a type of integration with our ever-surrounding electromagnetic field, potentially providing a type of anti-gravitic effect on an immediate physical surrounding. As far as this ever-surrounding electromagnetic field is concerned, think of it like this. The term static electricity does not mean clingy socks. It means static or constant. Static electricity.
Okay, so does the gauge in the cockpit that uses electromagnetism is not affected by that? What's going to be tremendous force? If it's electromagnetic, aren't your gauges electromagnetic? I know some of them are fly-by-wire and digital, but don't you have gauges that are absolutely sensitive to magnetism? They found a way to get rid of the GAUSS, the GAUSS?
The GAUSS meter?
Yeah, it's I mean, I go back to this electromagnetism, this toroidal, these forces, there's only one thing turning that compressor, man. And that is the expanding gases due to fire in a very fast way through that engine. And it's a constant. If you want to go fast, you add more gas to the air ratio, to the air fuel ratio. If you want to go slower, you slow it up. You're not slowing the compressor down. That's the side effect of not introducing as much fuel.
Very
wheels don't turn as fast if you let off your gas pedal. It's not because you're slowing the wheels down. It's because you're slowing the fuel air fuel ratio, or the fuel going into the I guess the engine, depending on what you're talking about.
All right, makes sense. I had a few questions, but they kind of got answered. I mean, if you say that the truck's on top of the picture they're showing,
that's such a class. That is so not to scale, man. First of all, the A380 is like 300 yards away, and the picture of the truck would be indicative of someone standing 20 feet away.
5 feet away, right? Yeah.
And then they stack them up, and they're like, "Look, this would never fit." All right, remove the wheels, remove the piping, and the cab, and you're literally the same
The
height
weight.
as the top of this thing. It's called a
You know,
Bowser. I mean,
the reason I let that part about the jet fuel in the documentary is because I wanted this thing to be clear. That was one
yes.
of the reason. Okay, because it's not for having different opinion. We are not,
Right.
as I said, we are not debating. We are not saying who is right, who is wrong. It's all for the purpose of understanding and investigating and researching. And yeah, we all, so it's quite an interesting topic. And I think if I wouldn't have put it in the documentary, maybe we wouldn't have looked it into so much, because the people are just having few memes. It's a hoax, or it's not a hoax, or so it's good to have some opinions from people who are, we have Brett here. And even on the last show, we had some people like the comments you are reading. There's another comment also, Jeannie, about someone speaks about, how it's exactly only the fuel. There's a very short comment there. If you can find it, if it's at your hand.
Hey, real
Wanna
quick,
read it?
Vikka.
Yep.
Anybody can tell me how my Pro Charger can run my Camaro without me paying $5 a gallon to go like 3 miles? I would love to hear it. If my compressor, which is what that is, turning at 60,000 RPMs, can get my Camaro from A to B without using any gas, I would love to hear it. It's going to be far more efficient in the form of forced air intake, but it still requires combustion. You know what I mean? I mean, even in my car or your truck, it still requires combustion. So,
yeah, it needs the mix of the air and the gas.
Yeah, and I do it on the fly. My car, I have a Holly Sniper EFI, and you can tune your air fuel ratio while you're driving. I can tune it from 14.3, which is an atmosphere, to 10.2. I forgot the name of the actual 1 atmosphere of air fuel. It's 14.3. I can't remember the name of it. There's a term for it. But I run mine a little leaner at 12. I mean, not leaner, a little richer, sorry, at 12 to 1, because it's a big block engine. But it still requires that fuel ratio. And if it's too lean, it cuts out. If it's too rich, bogs down. So, if you want to go faster, throw that throttle forward. You're going to dump that fuel in there. It's going to expand those gases faster, making your turbine turn faster.
And Brett, you're saying that in the wings it's divided up so when a plane is banking, that the liquid doesn't really slide around to one side, right?
Yeah, you also have they're like anti-siphon valves, or like anti-gravity. I forgot what they call it. There's a name for it, because I'm in helicopters now, so I don't have to worry about the technology anymore. But there's things to prevent fuel from going down the tubes or the cross tubes. There's pumps. There's one-way check valves.
Okay.
There's interconnect tubes that dispense fuel from left to right or right to left. I mean, these are checks that the pilots have to do.
Right.
They have to make sure that those work. The boost pumps, you need to make sure the interconnects are going to do what they say they do, or close within a certain time.
Right.
You don't want one side left open, so it's always pumping fuel to the other side.
Okay. Right.
In that situation.
How many baffles? How many compartments would it?
Well, I mean, a King Air 300 had, what is it? 1, 2, 5 bags and a wet bag, a wet area.
Okay.
A small King Air 300 had.
So it's divided into 10 sections then between both wings, and so you take the gallons, you divide it by 10, and that's what's in each one, sort of.
No, I mean they're going to be different sizes. I mean, they're going to, like the outer wing may have 80 feet of that wing.
I see.
There may be a center section dedicated to
Taper
crossover.
off.
The wing root is just a big wet wing.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if the entire A380 is wet wing, but I'm pretty sure like 95% of it's wet wing, meaning there is no rubber liner. There is no tank. The wing is the tank.
So there's no separation in there. There's one.
There's a solid rib or a spar. That would be the separation. pumps. There's there would be a rib that divides this from that. There's separate fuel pumps for each section, and then you have a solid rib or a spar that would be the separation. Yes, there would be a rib that divides this from.
Okay, we go one by one because somebody.
For each section, and then you have a.
Go ahead, Rick.
No, I'm sorry.
Were you saying something? Because we're always speaking three together. We couldn't get it. What we're saying?
No, that was an accident. I apologize for that.
All right. Do you want to add something to the?
Yeah. I was listening to what Brett was saying about jet engines, and I got a little bit confused there. Are you saying that you were talking about it being a hoax? Which part is the hoax? It's a hoax.
Telling the fact that these things fly only on compressed air.
Yeah, that
the wings don't have that fuel. I can promise you, the wings house that fuel. Now,
that's
the problem is whether you believe whether or not it's completely full every time one takes off. Because, like I said, there's a useful load, there's a maximum ramp weight, there's a maximum takeoff weight. You see the end result, or Joe Blow is arguing with you because all he sees is the end number at over 1 million pounds and goes, "There's no way." Well, you obviously don't do homework. And you don't understand useful load or max takeoff, max ramp, max landing. They have those for a reason. So the hoax is a bad word, but they say, "Oh, jet fuel hoax."
Right.
That's the name of what I'm arguing with. But I've also argued the fact that they don't have a website dedicated to Santa Claus. Well, wait, yeah, they do, don't they?
That's right.
So Brett, I have another question for you. All compressed air, and we were already talking about the different layers of electromagnetic fields when it comes to layers of Earth, one of them being the ionosphere. Do you think the Toradol effect has anything to do with flight patterns and flight directions when it comes to flights just being dependent on fuel?
No, I thought you were going to talk about like the coordinate side of it. Coordinates are man-made. They made that spot over England a specific coordinate.
I'm sorry. Just to simplify it, do you think the Toradol effect? Do you think the Taurus effect? Do you think the electromagnetic field of Earth affects anything about the flight fuel at all?
I don't think on our current conventional, commercial aircraft that require turbine engines to fly. No, but I can say with certainty there are things that even some of y'all have probably seen with the clearances that we've obtained that definitely would use I hate to say the word anti-gravity because that's such a cliche.
No, that's right. That's fine.
But anti-gravity or magnetism or magnetic properties, right? And they can go very fast.
Yes.
Magnetic solutions can go very fast, but they don't have turbine engines on them.
Very well said. Thank you.
As a matter of fact, aren't they building like a high-speed train using the magnetic?
Yep.
Yeah, that thing in California where they did all the the wildfires.
Oh yeah, that's where they want to build a train.
Yeah,
they want to build
ironically, it's right where all the people just lost their lands.
Oh yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah. So there was another comment that speaks about that they could use some fuel up to for takeoff, and when they're cruising, they start harvesting energy from the atmosphere, static, and that's something working in combination with the engines, and there could be some kind of hidden technology that they don't speak.
I would say he's mostly accurate in the fact that it takes a lot more to get an airplane off the ground than it does to maintain one at altitude. Once you're at altitude, you're already moving forward. It's just
exactly,
like I said,
and you're
get the car pressing on the gas pedal to get from 0 to 60. It's going to take a lot more gas at that light to get to 60 than it will to maintain it at 60. You're already moving forward, so now you're just lightly touching the pedal down.
Yeah, but
It's the same
there is no
concept.
harvesting.
I mean,
Yeah, but there is no
you're throttling
harvesting
back.
of.
The pressure altitude up there is a lot less than it is down here. If you're flying, you know, no, I won't say ETOPS, but if you're flying required minimum vertical separation, I can't RVSMs or whatever it is, at 36,000 feet, you can watch the guy next to you flying at 30,000 feet, and all you do is throttle back, and then, you know, when they're ready to have their little race throughout your flight, they just nudge it forward. Because they're already at cruise altitude, they're already at cruise speed. They throttle it back.
So
And you
there
can
is
kind of
no.
tell when they're doing that.
Are
Because,
these
you know, when you're
people
taking off, aren't you
suggesting?
getting pushed back into the seat a little bit?
Are these people suggesting, Vika, that there is this hidden energy that is being harnessed once an aircraft is in flight?
No, there are a couple of, you know, some people say that this could be this Victor. There's one German guy who invented something about, you know, magnetism and kind of levitation, you know. So there's one thing, and the other thing is that they could be harvesting directly once they are at cruising altitude. The engines are kind of harvesting the electricity or energy and helping it to, you know, propel or have some combination with the engines. There are two different viewpoints, and then the other saying they're not using petrol like fuel at all, and it's only compressed air. So there are different variations of people who don't believe in the fuel, that you need fuel for these engines to. So that was my kind of question to Brett, that is there any other thing that could be that
There's no
that
hidden
this.
box when you split an engine.
No, there's no
You've
hidden
got
box.
bearings, you've got turbine, you got compressor discs or the CT discs, you've got the inlet vanes, you have your exciter box, you have fuel nozzles, you have your combustion liner. You know, there's no hidden thing that comes
Yeah,
on, turns
if
on,
there
and does
was,
something else
Brett,
later on.
the mechanics, if there was, the mechanics would know about such
Exactly.
things.
Right. Yeah.
I've split enough
Yes.
engines in my life to know. I mean, I was actually going to do it as a business before, you know, that thing we don't talk about anymore, showed up and kind of changed literally everything I was going to be doing in the future. I thought to go from place to place and literally do nothing but engine work. And I guess somebody had a sick sense of humor and changed all that.
Well, I worked on a couple of jet engines in my career in the Navy, and it's like somebody just said, there's no hidden boxes, there's nothing, no hidden machinery, no hidden uptake or intake.
Yeah, no vortex
hidden
generators,
material.
no
What
no
about
anti-gravity machines.
What about ether?
What about
What
ether?
about
Would that be a variable?
I don't know. Where is the ether?
It's all over.
Yeah, that's right. So can you harness that? I mean, you can harness it, but how and to what capacity are you going to apply that and put it in practical use on a combustion engine?
Very well said.
I mean, I can take a Tesla coil, and we all know that we've seen it because I've seen a literally 8-year-old show me how to harness my own energy, right? The little YouTube video. But to be able to harness it and apply an actual application in the form of thrust that, you know, an entire city moves behind. Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I know that there are things, like I said, y'all probably know more than I do as far as the new Lockheed Martins of the world and the L3s and you know, those guys that make those gadgets with all that earmarked money. You know, y'all probably know more than I do. Stuff. I know they ain't punching through some atmosphere. I can go that far.
So it's for the people to have a better understanding, because you know, it's been so much while about this jet fuel and jet fuel hoax, and I hope this helps shed some light on this, and you know, so.
And that's the only reason I'm asking these questions, Brett. I appreciate
No,
you.
I actually got off Facebook when Vic and I first started talking. Because I could feel myself getting agitated. Like, I can feel. I was getting so upset. I mean, it was between me getting banned because I was getting reported, but yeah, I'm just glad I came on tonight to at least express this part of it. And there's going to be people that are saying I'm crazy. I kind of think it's crazy that you would think it doesn't need fuel. I mean, drag
Yeah,
strips
exactly.
use fuel,
No one is.
but yet they're
Yeah,
using the exact same turbine engine technology, in the form of compressors turning at 60, 70, 100,000 RPMs. And, these guys are the best at what they do. Why don't they have that technology in a car? It's the same thing, same concept.
yeah. It's not about just like somebody calling crazy or right or wrong. It's about explain what people think. It's not only about leaving a comment and saying this is hoax or you are mad or you are wrong. No, we want to understand it in the right way because we all are investigating, and it's not just enough to say that it's just this is crap, and no.
Yes, sir.
Well, it's just like
Explain why you think it's a crap. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's like your 8 inches per mile square question. A lot of people are not going to understand that because they can't grasp how you're supposed to see it or how you should be seeing it if you want to see it correctly. You're walking around a stick and you have to deviate 8 inches if you're 25,000 miles on a big concentric circle, not 8 inches in front of you 1 mile away or 8 inches to your right or left. And obviously it's 8 inches per mile squared. If you're going 2 miles, then it would be 32. If it's going to be 3 miles, it's going to be 72.
But Brett, could you break that down for everybody? So exactly how that's done, because that's a tough one. People get stuck on.
Well, I know, and so like if you're at the beach, you're saying that 3 miles away, the boat disappears, and that's because they're looking at it like an arc, like you're like a ball you're on. But you need to be looking at it like a disc, like you're standing over a pizza. That the center is the North Pole. And the edge of the pizza is a perfect concentric circle that's called the equator. Don't even worry about lands at the moment. Just worry about the equator circle itself. At the equator, the formula is diameter squared times pi, diameter times pi, or pi r squared to get your circumference.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to measure that deviation when they say this is the geometrical equation for a sphere, a circle, or the face of a cylinder? Because all three are the same formula. People try to use trigonometry and they do the angles underneath with the triangles. Don't stop all that. Diameter of your equator or your globe, or however you want to word it, is 7992 or 7996. But we know they said that the equator is either 24,901 or 25,040 miles, which is why you get 1,040 miles spinning because of the 24 time zones.
Well,
so I use 25,040 as my number because they say we're spinning at 1,040 miles an hour. This is NASA and the scientists saying
right.
So with 24 time zones, that means my equator, the widest part of my ball, must be 25,040 miles around in circumference.
Okay.
All right, so if that's the case, and I'm standing at the equator, and I walk a mile, that means I've dropped 8 inches according to them. But what am I really measuring? Lay that equator flat, like cut the Earth in half if it's a globe, and lay it flat. So now I'm standing on that equator.
That same thing.
I am deviating 8 inches away from the equator if I walked 1 mile in a straight line, east or west.
Right.
I have deviated away from what I used to call the North Pole by 8 inches. And the way you get it, like I said, is you take the number of feet in a mile, 5,280, because that's the measurement we in America use.
5,280.
And because we're using miles, we're going to divide it by the diameter of your equator, which is 7,996. So take 5,280 divided by 7,996. And voila, you come up with, the number of NASA. 8 inches, 0.666 feet.
Of a foot, yep.
Yeah, that is the deviation that you're going to have to move left if you're facing east to get back on the equator. after that 1 mile. If
Honestly,
you're facing right or west, you're going to have to move 8 inches back to the right.
Brett, that was very, very well said, and I have to give you mad dubs for that because you're the first one I've ever heard this information from.
And I have posted that, and I have caught shit for it many times. You are not going over a hump 8 inches. You are going simply around the center, north, Polaris above, in a concentric circle. And in order to maintain that circle, mile for mile for mile, all the way around that damn thing, you're going to have to move back 8 inches every mile while walking perfectly east or west 1 mile each time.
Don't you guys think it's ironic that the globe model is using the same measurements as our geocentric model? In one way, shape, or form? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's precedent. You know, it's the forbidden knowledge. It's the I mean, there's a group of individuals that may have the very tools needed to hide such a thing as their symbols.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Their entire
And
organization is symbols.
You just exposed it.
A lot
I
of
did
this
it a
stuff
long
works
time ago.
both ways,
Believe it or not, completely different topic, but my last name, yeah, it goes deep into that. But
no, we don't have to talk about that tonight. You're doing a great job, brother. Keep it up.
So, but yeah, that's where the 8 inches comes from. It's not.
But
I'm not disappearing 3 miles away, 72 inches. If I walk 3 miles east in a straight line while I'm standing on the equator, that means I've walked 72 inches off of the arc called the equator
3
after
miles.
my 3 mile trek. And I'm going to have to move over 6 feet to get back on.
Can you explain how you get the 72 inches in the 3 miles, though? That's what I
it's 8 inches per mile squared.
Right. But no, I mean,
so it's 5,280,
right,
which is the number of feet in a mile.
Right.
Divided by your diameter of your circle. The circle that you're measuring is the equator. 25,000 mile circle in circumference is 7,996 miles in diameter. That's the geometric equation for solving the face of a cylinder, a sphere, or a circle.
Bang.
Because they're all the same formula.
Bang.
People try to use that trigonometry with the sign of C, and then you're taking the right angle. Yeah, stop all that. You're not doing it right.
What is it? A plus B squared equals.
Well, that's Pythagorean theorem.
That's the Pythagorean theorem. That was honestly,
that's not.
This was invented by Pythagoras, which happens to be one of the first POSs, for lack of better terms, that started introducing the geocentric model or the.
Eratosthenes got it wrong. I can take 2 beer cans on my floor, and because the shadows are different lengths, he says that the surface must be curved. So Eratosthenes is simply wrong.
Does the 3, 4, 5 rule work on a sphere? I don't think it would.
Oh,
right?
you're talking about Pythagorean theorem?
Is that the same thing?
Well,
3, 4, 5 rule?
3 squared, 4 squared equals 5 squared. But that's just because those triangles actually make that formula work. But on the surface of the Earth, no, it's a lot easier.
It works on a ball.
Geometry of it. Pi r squared times pi is your circumference.
Pi.
Or diameter times pi. Diameter is 7996, and the only reason you know that's because, like I said, you have 25,040. So take 25,040 divided by 7996, and you're going to come up with pi. To me, this is the easy stuff.
Right,
this is so, this is the easy stuff. There's stuff out there that people talk about, like zodetics, above my pay grade. There's things that I still have yet to understand. Like, how did you come up with that? Like, the book of zodetics in general. I see practical application, and that's why everything did change. Like I said, if I have half full and half empty cups on paper, I'm going to write down half empty equals half full. On paper, the law of equality says what I do to one side of an equation, I must do to the other. So now I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So now I have 1 full equals 1 empty. Go apply that in the real world. You can't. Just like you can't have thrust in a vacuum. If you have nothing to manipulate or nothing to move away from, You can't do it. The only reason a boat moves in water is because it's manipulating the water. The only reason an airplane flies is because it's manipulating the air. Period.
Excellent.
But they say they do it.
Very well said.
Wow, that's amazing, man. This is just for the people to get more ideas about it, because it's not about having different opinions. It's about, because we don't also want to look fool by not just want to seeing because somebody said that it's like this. We don't have to be dogmatic about everything. We have to have open mind for everything. So people need to look into this too, because
Yes, sir.
it's
Well, they
important.
call us pseudoscientists, and what they don't understand is they're the ones that are practicing pseudoscience, because that goes back to basic physics there. I mean, we're talking for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, you know? So in space, there's nothing to react upon, just like Brett said. But yet I hear that all the time in the group, and people who ask me questions, you know, and it's a basic fact that if there's nothing, no air or no molecules to react upon, then there's not going to be any reaction.
Well, those are Isaac Newton's laws of motion. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not like it's not like the laws of thermodynamics. But I do know where you're coming from completely.
It's like trying to jump in midair.
Yeah, that's why we say, HelioPsychosis, because the things they imagine and the things they say is just impossible.
They are. They're just.
So,
I've still seen anvils float in Mercury, my friend.
Yes, sir. Due to density molecule of the certain object and the medium that it is surrounding.
So soon, guys, we're gonna
exactly
be
why the apple fell, but I don't think that ever happened. I think it's a metaphor.
In 1666, what are the chances? That's the year it happened.
Do you know what the date was?
No.
I'm wondering because I bet you it was winter when there were no apples.
That's epic. That was like January 1st.
Dude, if you could prove that would be the cherry on the pie, bro. Straight up.
I wouldn't be too surprised.
Hey guys, before we get drift off to other stuff, we're gonna start wrapping it up, so we're gonna have a last thought about the show today, what we heard, whatever last thoughts you guys want to add. So go ahead, Jeannie, go ahead.
I think we just lost Gene.
I think Jeannie just lost. Do you mind if I start?
Yep, go ahead.
So shout out to all you guys. Big accomplishment. I think we're doing all over as a team. And we're taking over. You know what I mean? You guys got to admit. We're all a part of this. You know what I mean? Shout out to David Weiss. Shout out to Mr. Noble. But all the dubs in the world to David Weiss. But you just heard it from Brent Freeman. You know what I mean? Like, he has it firsthand. This experience, that all the knowledge you just expressed. And I say this in love. I'm not saying let's stay in our lane. You know what I mean? Let's expand and keep learning. Thank you for not making this a debate tonight, Vikka. You're the man of the hour, man of the year, man of the decade, probably man of the century. But we all have our part in this for sure. And we're all a body of Christ, whether you guys like to admit it or not. But we all have our certain components, and we're coming at this game hard. So everybody that's asleep, just be aware. You know what I mean? We're not giving up, and we are never, ever going to turn down.
Excellent, brother Kevin. Thank you for all the contribution. And yes, we are all together in this. So we're going to grow together, everyone. Thank you for being here, Kevin, tonight.
Thank you.
And Rick, your thoughts about the show?
Hey, I think you really got something going here, Brother Vikka. This notion of having a panel and Mark and I have been talking about doing some shows like that as well, not just on Hoodwinked, but starting a whole new show that, involves a panel. Because I think there's a lot of great thoughts, there's a lot of great talk, and a lot of questions are answered too. And that's what this is all about. That's what we do this for, is to answer questions. We don't get paid for this. I mean, if you guys do, I envy you, because I know we don't over here on my end. But we enjoy doing it. We love it. I want to give a shout out to Mark Hollander tonight, who just texted me a minute ago and said his grandson scored a touchdown at the football team, on his football team. So check that out. Good going, Mark. Can you just picture the guy sitting up in the bleachers up there texting? That's Mark. Always has to keep us abreast of what's going on. But I want to invite everybody to check us out at Ferret Radio Live on YouTube. And also check out our radio station on ferlive.com. We have a 24/7 flat earth oriented radio station. The first, maybe not the only one now, but we were the first that we know of. And we've been doing this for quite a few years, and we love doing it. So, hey, you guys check us out, all right? And hope Vikka will invite us again to come back to another panel show like this. And shout outs to Brett Freeman, who gave us that excellent dissertation and his thoughts about the matter, and it was really fascinating. Brett, I'd like to have you on our show as well one time, if we could. And Kevin, brother, it's always good to hear you, brother. You're a fun guy to be with. Just to hear your laugh. And Gene's one of us. He's an admin in our group. I'm certain he is. Yeah, aren't you, Gene? If not, I want you to be.
Thank you. I am. Yes, sir. I love it.
All right. And you guys, we'll hear from you again, all right? Thanks a lot, Vikka.
Hey, thank you for passing by, Rick. It was a pleasure to have you guys. Do check out Ferret Radio Live with Mark Hollander and Rick Lotech. They're doing amazing job. They did for Flatten the Curve. They're doing right now, and we are always there. And for you guys, always welcome. So we sure want to pass by to your shows too. So thank you for being here, Rick. Jeannie, last words, brother. You said already. Did you already have your last thoughts?
Oh, I don't know what my last thoughts are. I never do with these panels. What a great night.
I love you, man.
I love you too. I love you too, brother. Good to meet you here. I cleared up a lot tonight. Thank you guys for being here. Thank the audience for being here. I hope you guys had a lot of fun, and I hope you come back. And Vikka, thanks for having me. Rick, good to see you. Brett, you answered a lot of questions I didn't even know I had, brother. That was really great. I was never really convinced about it, but it did. I had some questions, and I think you cleared them all up. And,
well, that's what we're here to do. I still have quite a few myself.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. You guys really are gurus, and you're living legends. I hope you know that. You really are, and you'll be written in history. People are going to remember you guys. I know that, and I do hope the audience had a lot of fun. I know I did.
Thanks, Gene, for being here, for accompanying us for the shows. It's always great to have you too, brother. We didn't have Rob. Rob had some audio problems. But Brett, your last thoughts, brother.
Yeah, I just want to say you can find me at Flat Earth Freeman on Facebook currently. I try to stay away from all the other the media sources, and I know Facebook can be tedious and quite problematic, but yeah, this being my first one with you, man, I know I had to bail out on the last one. Production wise, I thought it was great. I questioned the way I looked on that, but nonetheless, moving forward, let 22 be the year. I've still got a lot of questions myself, but I think there are a few things that I might know a little bit about. I'm the jack of a few and the master of none. I did see Cindy Holland. Her and I talked several years ago at length about some things, and again, being who we are, doing our own things, I do say hello, and also to Hollander, two individuals that I have talked to previously. But yeah, it's if you are questioning anything that I did say tonight, you can find me, or you can just get through Vikka, and he can find me. He knows where I'm at. He always seems to find a way. But I do appreciate you letting me on. I was kind of nervous, I guess. I gave that interview years ago, but I haven't really done a whole lot since then. Just doing my thing. So I hope to do a couple more of these with you.
Well, definitely, Brett. It was such a awesome pleasure to have you finally. We've been waiting for this, and thank you for all the inputs, brother, and also in the documentary. And for definitely, you're gonna be coming here more, and it's better that you start getting used to it. So, thank you, brother, for being here.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, everyone who are watching us. For sure, we're gonna come back with some more awesome, amazing stuff. Make sure to share, subscribe if you haven't. And this is Vikka Draziv signing out from HelioPsychosis Podcasts Live. Thank you guys, and bye.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.